Donald Trump's longtime personal lawyer and self-described fixer is sounding less inclined to fix things these days. Michael Cohen, who famously told a reporter he would take a bullet for Trump, told ABC's George Stephanopoulos this weekend, "My wife, my daughter, and my son have my first loyalty and always will. I put family and country first." This is quite an about-face for a man who has spent years defending President Trump. According to Vanity Fair, Cohen has been feeling frustrated. He reportedly told a friend, "Nobody is watching my back." Cohen was asked by ABC how he would respond to an attack by the president or his legal team. He told Stephanopoulos, "I will not be a punching bag as part of anyone's defense strategy. I am not a villain of this story, and I will not allow others to try to depict me that way." Cohen has not been charged with any crime, but he is under criminal investigation related to the $130,000 hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels. For more, I'm joined by Ken Vogel, political reporter for the New York Times, and Caroline Polisi, a federal and white-collar criminal defense attorney. Ken, let me start with you. When you're in the legal situation that Michael Cohen is in, you don't just randomly give sit-down interviews to national television networks. There had to be a purpose here. What do we think that was?
Well, there are a couple possibilities. Number one is he is signaling his willingness to strike a deal with prosecutors, possibly to cooperate, to give them something on Trump. Now, this would be an unusual way to do that. Typically, those types of deals are reached in private, and prosecutors don't like you going out and talking a lot when you're either cooperating with them or you are in the process of reaching a deal under which you would cooperate with them. So that leads us to the second possibility, that he might be sending a signal to none other than his former boss, Donald Trump, suggesting either that, as we said, more than suggesting that he would not sort of sit idly by if the Trump folks tried to roll on him and throw him under the bus, either in the media or through legal proceedings, or the possibility that he may be signaling that he wants Donald Trump to pay more, foot more of the bill, the burden for his legal bills. We know from our reporting that he is unhappy with the president's lack of effort on that front. The campaign did pay for some of his legal bills, but that was only in the Russia investigation. This, of course, is a separate investigation by the Southern District of New York. And then possibly the furthest reaches of this might be sending a signal to the president, hey, if I do get indicted and convicted, I might be interested in a pardon from you.
Well, we have a criminal defense attorney here, so Caroline, maybe you're the perfect one to ask this. If you had a client who has been through what Michael Cohen has been through, under what circumstances or for what purpose would you say, good idea to do this interview?
Under no circumstances would I say it's a good idea to do this interview, which is why I think the pardon theory has gained more steam, on the Twitter sphere as of late, because the question is why, if you really were interested in the cooperation agreement, Ken's right, that would be something that, his lawyer would pick up the phone and call the Southern District prosecutors. Now, I tend to think that the pardon theory gives Michael Cohen a little bit too much credit. I don't think he's overthinking this. The distinction between the courtroom and the media has been blurred from day one in this case. I don't think Michael Cohen knows where the distinction is at this point. Look, this is a 180. As you said, he said he was willing to take a bullet for President Trump, but it's one thing to say you'll take a bullet. It's another thing when the gun is locked and loaded. And here the ammunition is clearly the threat of a criminal indictment from the Southern District. Attorneys were finishing up in the SDNY case in the privilege review of those materials. That's coming to a close. There's a deadline looming this Thursday, which means this case is moving apace. And if there's a time at which Michael Cohen wants to be thinking about his strategy at this point, now is the time. Now is the time he needs to be entering into proffer agreements with, multiple potentially jurisdictions, with Special Counsel Robert Mueller's office, with Southern District prosecutors. So I think it's more of an indication that he wants a deal as opposed to a pardon.
And along those lines, Michael Cohen recently retained attorney Guy Petrillo to replace his current lawyer. Petrillo is a former federal prosecutor with significant experience in the Southern District of New York. That's the attorney's office that is currently investigating Michael Cohen, as you just heard. ABC News is also reporting that Petrillo, once Petrillo takes over, a joint defense agreement Cohen shared with the president, which allowed their lawyers to share information and documents with each other, will come to an end. What does that mean? What's the
Huge
significance
deal.
there?
This is a huge deal. So the reason you enter into a joint defense agreement with a co-defendant, usually, is because you want to share attorney-client privileged material because you're presenting a combined defense. Your interests are aligned. Once your interests are no longer aligned and you have antagonistic defenses, as we call it, which is just legal jargon for you want to throw the other guy under the bus, that's when you break a joint defense agreement. Heretofore, the defense has been nothing to see here. We did nothing wrong. Now it looks like the defense is going to be that guy did it, and that's exactly when you stop abiding by the terms of these agreements. I think that's more of an indicator that he's going to cooperate as opposed to this interview.
Also of note here, in this interview with ABC, Cohen made a point to distance himself from the president. He told George Stephanopoulos, "I don't agree with those who demonize or vilify the FBI. I respect the FBI as an institution as well as their agents." He also said, "As an American, I repudiate Russia's or any other foreign government's attempt to interfere or meddle in our democratic process, and I would call on all Americans to do the same. Simply accepting the denial of Mr. Putin is unsustainable." Cohen also said he doesn't like the term witch hunt. Last week, President Trump, who likes to call the Mueller investigation a witch hunt, tweeted, "Russia continues to say they had nothing to do with meddling in our election." So, Ken, on multiple fronts here, clearly creating some distance, Michael Cohen, is between himself and the president. Do we have any sense how Donald Trump is interpreting this, how he sees this, how he's reacting to this?
Well, it can't be Stephen. And let's not forget, this comes after Michael Cohen stepped down from his post at the Republican National Committee, I believe it was last month, because he said he disagreed with the administration's policy on separating children from their parents, migrant children from their parents at the border. Now, it sort of begs the question, why was he still in this leadership post at the Republican National Committee when he was under criminal investigation? Nonetheless, it's part of a pattern of him distancing himself from the president. It may just be part of this signaling that we're talking about, where he's saying, "Hey, boss," or former boss, "you can't necessarily take for granted that I'm on your team. You need to show me a little something, a little more of that loyalty that I've shown you for so long in reciprocity." Thus far, we haven't seen that, but we also haven't seen the patented Trump sort of distancing, stiff-arming him, stiff-arming former allies who played an integral role, as he has done repeatedly with other folks who have come under fire or have come under scrutiny or even indictment in the Mueller investigation, such as Paul Manafort, who the White House famously said had played a limited role for a limited period of time. That sort of defied credulity. This is a guy who was integral to the campaign. It would really defy credulity if they tried to do the same thing with Michael Cohen, who played an integral role not just in the campaign, but in President Trump's business affairs for more than a decade before the campaign.
And Caroline, how would Mueller, how would the special prosecutor, watching all of this, seeing this interview, how would he read this? How would he react to this?
Well, remember, it's very important to remember that this was actually a referral by the special counsel's office to the Southern District of New York, which the indication there is that Mueller didn't see this as part of his ambit to begin with. So likely, it's my opinion, we don't know this for sure, but it's that $130,000 hush money payment, which, raised eyebrows about campaign finance violations, potentially that raised eyebrows here. Mueller said, look, this really doesn't fall within, my mandate to prosecute potential Russian meddling. But now we know he's gotten a little bit farther down the line in his investigation, and now we're hearing reports that, well, Michael Cohen actually was involved in some of this Russia stuff. He dangled the possibility of President Trump's knowledge about that fateful Trump Tower meeting in summer of 2016, saying that he wasn't going to answer that on advice of counsel. Well, it sounds like he knows a lot about potentially Russia collusion. So I think Bob Mueller's going to be listening.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.